Hey everyone, this is Steve Wright, and you're listening to the SCD Lifestyle Solution Podcast number 23. All right, so on the phone with me tonight, it's epic night right here. I got my friend and partner Jordan Reesner. How you doing, man?
I'm excellent, man. I'm really excited tonight. We have a very, very special guest, so I'm looking forward to talking with him tonight.
We do. So on the phone with us tonight is our friend Jay from Crohn'sBoy.com. So how's it going, man?
It's doing awesome.
All right.
I'm doing awesome. Couldn't be better. Except for if summer was here, it'd make me a lot happier, but it's not, so.
Yeah, I feel you there, man. Well, thanks for coming on the show, man. Uh, I know we found your site when we were first getting started, and you're kind of like maybe like one of the first bloggers out there that was talking about SCD and Crohn's and natural treatments. So it's really an honor to be interviewing you here.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate that. I like what you guys do as well. I'm very, very informed. I try to keep up best as possible when I see your guys' blog posts, but you guys are definitely making a dent in doing things as well, so thanks for having me.
Cool, man. Well, hey, so for people who maybe haven't heard of you or are just hearing of you right now, why don't you give us a little background on where you're coming from and how you got started kind of blogging and that kind of thing?
Okay, so you pretty much want me to go over my story and tell me like what happened to me and how I was diagnosed and that sort of thing and how I got to where I am currently?
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Just,
Okay.
what treatments did you try before SCD? How did SCD go? That kind of thing.
Okay, sounds good. So for myself, I've had Crohn's. I had Crohn's probably since I was about 17 or 18 years old. I never really knew I never really knew I had an IBD at that point in time. I just remember that I had the first symptom I ever had was I had a fistula on my butt, and what I thought it was initially is I used to lift weights a lot, and I thought perhaps I just had a hemorrhoid and it filled with pus. So that was one of the first symptoms that I had that okay, something was off. But again, I just thought it was some type of hemorrhoid. And then from there, I noticed I seemed to like always be sweating a lot. I'd wake up with night sweats. I'd have cramps in my lower stomach. And again, I lifted weights like pretty consistently, probably like 5 or 6 days a week. So this probably went on for a few years where I never said anything. And I'm sure a lot of people that are listening have been in the position, and especially men compared to women, because men tend to not want to go to the doctors. And I was definitely one of those people. And I'm sure you guys have been there before, haven't you?
Oh yeah, for sure, man. Doctor's office is always like a pain in the butt to get there, and then not to mention have to find out that something's wrong with you.
Exactly. So, you know what? I think probably from the time I was 18 till I was about 24, 25, yeah, about 24-ish, I never really went to a doctor's to say, okay, I think I have an issue. When really I knew I had an issue, and especially the fact that my grandmother had colitis and so did her sister. So there was definitely a link, some type of genetic component in regards to that. But I guess I didn't really want to face the music. But then there was a point in time when I actually said, hey, I think something's getting serious here. I wanted to get diagnosed. I walked into my doctor's office and said, can you pretty much do some tests and find out if I have Crohn's disease? He was pretty adamant that I didn't have it, but I said, okay, well, can we at least check it out? So he sent my blood test, got my blood test back, and he said, yeah, it's not positive, but I guess there was some issues with some concern. So I said, can I have a colonoscopy done? He said, sure. He goes, I'll send you for one. So I went for the colonoscopy. And when I went for the colonoscopy, the doctor told me right there that I did have severe ulcerative colitis slash Crohn's. So I had the worst of both. And he could tell that it was there for quite a few years before I actually got diagnosed. And so then he pretty much went over the spiel with me about saying you're diagnosed, like he diagnosed me right when I was in the colonoscopy. Right when I got the colonoscopy, I was still a little bit, I guess you'd say, high on whatever they gave me through the process. And he was telling me about like, yeah, your diet doesn't matter. You can pretty much eat whatever you want. And he told me that we'd have a consultation, though, like a follow-up appointment about a week later discussing everything. So at that point, I walked into his office and he told me, yeah, he went over the diagnosis again. He offered me, I think it was 6-MP that he suggested that I try, or Humira. And I told him that I wanted to hold off, that I wanted to decide what I wanted to do. And I left out a little part of, because I knew that I had Crohn's disease, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to say, hey, I have something. Like when I started searching my symptoms online and saying, what do I have? Everything pointed towards Crohn's disease. So I was proactive. And that point when I was leading up to going to get the colonoscopy and some of the barium follow through and some of the things that I was getting to actually diagnose me, I was pretty sure that I had Crohn's disease. So I searched for hours and hours on the net. And you know what? I found a lot of bogus claims, whether I'm not going into certain, I won't go into names, but there was a lot of bogus claims about this one pill cure and stuff like this. But I couldn't actually find anybody that cured themselves or overcame or were in long-lasting remission. But then I found the SCD diet, and it was one protocol on the internet that tend to have a lot of backing. Well, I actually seen some people talking about it. So what I did is I picked up the book and I looked at the front of the book and I said, hey, I want to try to call some of these people. So there were some of the, I'm trying to look at the book right now. On the back of the book, there's a few different people. So there's Lucy and there's a few other people that are on the back of the book that are talking. I think there's one from Carrie and Tracy Curry and Lucy Rossett. There were some people. I actually went and tracked these people down and called them and spoke with them. But I am going to be, the person that actually made me think that I could overcome this disease through this process was Lucy from Lucy's Kitchen. She was the first person I ever spoke with that told me she was med-free for almost 20 years. And for anybody that knows me, I'm a pretty outgoing guy. Whether I seem egotistical or not, I'm definitely in-your-face kind of guy. I was almost brought to tears to actually believe that I could overcome this thing because everything else, including the institution and everything I read, talked about suffering and how bad life was. Here I talked about this lady that was getting ready to get cut open a week before, and she made a decision not to get cut open and have her colon removed. In 20 years, she's med-free, doing awesome. So from that point, I started SED. I started doing everything I could. I got significantly better. And it wasn't until, because I was doing the diet previous to actually getting the colonoscopy, it got better, but it started to get better even before I got my colonoscopy. My colonoscopy is what set off my full onset Crohn's disease. So however, I'm sure this has also happened to other people that are listening, when I went through the prep process to get rid of a lot of the bowel, like pretty much clean the bowel out with some of that stuff, they give you like Dulcolax and stuff like that. They never told me to take probiotics. So what ended up happening is I had a complete unbalance of bacteria, and I went into full flare stage when I pretty much lost 30 to 35 pounds in a matter of 2 to 3 weeks. So it was not fun at all. But like I said, I got back on the SCD bandwagon. I kept at it. I started getting a lot better. I didn't really ever hit the drugs. I was completely adamant right from the beginning of not taking drugs. Just because I ultimately didn't believe in the drugs, and I couldn't see any proof that they worked. I could see scientific blind studies and stuff like that, but I couldn't see proof. I couldn't, cause and effect. Somebody saying, yeah, it worked for me. So that's why I decided to stick with SCD. And, I'd say within 6 to 7 months, I started to feel awesome, and I started to feel significantly better. And then I started to get angry. I started to say it's not fair that I was told that I was going to suffer with this disease forever and there was no hope. And then that's when I decided that I'd start creating a website. So I bought some software off the internet and started crohnsboy.com, and to my surprise, I ended up getting 300 to 500 people a day within a few months, and the rest is history, I guess, from that point.
That's awesome.
Hopefully I didn't ramble too long, but yeah, just trying to dig into it.
No, man, dude, you have an awesome story, and just the fact that you were so proactive, and I mean, just even, I don't even think I ever would have thought of like just turning a book over and tracking down people who make testimonials on the back of a book cover. That's literally ballsy and amazing at the same time. So I really applaud you for that.
Thanks a lot. Well, anybody that hears the statements that I make would understand, right?
Yeah, no. So that's so sweet. So you had like full on diarrhea, going to the bathroom like 12, 20 times a day or something like that when you went in for the colonoscopy then?
No, I didn't have any. I had barely any symptoms besides the night sweats, and I'd say maybe thin stools and a little bit of diet, like soft stool before I went in. But the 2 days after I went into full onset, like flare-up Crohn's disease, like / UC, but before that it wasn't very severe. It was the colonoscopy that set it off completely, and that's very common. As I speak to more and more people, that's common. That's when their disease activates. And for anybody that gets a colonoscopy when they're 50, that's why most people that get diagnosed with UC, they tend to get it after they get their colonoscopy for colon cancer, doing that little screening. That's when they get diagnosed.
Yeah, that's crazy. So do you have any advice? Because I know you've talked to a lot of people about how to work around that or make that easier.
In regards to getting a colonoscopy,
Yeah.
you know what, I'd say I'm not a big fan of colonoscopies in general, but so let's just try to deal with, I get the lesser of evils here. I'd tell anybody that's getting a colonoscopy pretty much just to make sure that they're consuming a lot of good beneficial bacteria. Because if a doctor's pretty much, I've told other people the same story. I've said if you have your grass, your lawn, and you were to go pour a bunch of gasoline all over your grass and light it on fire, I ask people, what do you think would grow back first? Like what tends to grow in almost any conditions? You're going to get pretty much dandelions. Wouldn't you guys agree?
Oh yeah.
You're going to get a bunch of weeds, right? And your gut's the same way. When you're getting rid of a lot of the beneficial bacteria, that bad bacteria can just flourish, and it's having a party. That's really what it's doing. But if a doctor actually said, you know what, consume probiotics, consume whether it's just regular yogurt. I'm an SCD guy, so I would say go with SCD legal yogurt, but they don't know anything about that. But at least I'd say if they were diligent enough to know what the repercussions of draining a lot of your gut flora through that process, they would suggest including beneficial bacteria at the same time. And then I think it would sort of neutralize the effect so it wouldn't be as bad. And I'd also tell people to probably take something like George's aloe vera or probably glucosamine or something after they're doing it to sort of heal their digestive tract. Because when a camera's sliding around, cutting you up, and I'm sure for anybody that's got it and you notice blood after a bowel movement, it's not the best thing to have. So anything that you can do to take the stress off of it. I wouldn't go back to eating regular meals like the first few days. I would definitely relax it for a while to give it a chance to heal.
That's good knowledge, man. Good knowledge. Thanks.
And actually, right when I have you, can I say one more thing, bud?
Yeah.
Okay, I was actually going to do a video on this, or do a little slash podcast slash little segment on my site. I sort of compare like natural healing, and this sort of pertains to this natural healing. It's almost like, I call it like the scab effect. Natural healing is, picture yourself getting a scab. When you're a young kid, we tend to get a scab and we pick it off, right? Do you guys remember that when you were a kid? You'd fall and hurt yourself and you pick the scab off?
What if I still do that till today?
Exactly. Okay, so we do that. Okay, so my point is, and I'm sure we all do, I'm sitting there looking at it, oh, it looks juicy, I want to pick it off, and then it hurts, and then I got to do it back again, right?
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is, let's look at healing like that. So let's say your body, right? If you were to look at a scab and say, you know what, okay, I hurt myself, there's a scab growing. I'm going to put some lotion on, I'm going to put a Band-Aid over it. I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to do my best to make sure nothing interferes with that Band-Aid getting affected, like with that cut getting affected. And then at night, if I want to take the Band-Aid off, to give it some air, to let it do what it does, dry out and start healing, awesome. Through that process, you're going to notice it's going to heal a lot faster than if you were to sit there picking it and picking it and picking it and picking it, because you could literally pick it for days, for months, you know what I mean, and it wouldn't heal. It would just completely be pink and reddish and maybe a little bit of pus or blood. But you have to see, it's so huge to know that you can go from saying, I'm going to give this time, I'm going to treat this thing like gold and make sure nothing happens to it for 7 days, and it's going to heal. To the point when, wow, it looks great. There's a little bit of pinkness, but it's almost gone away. Compared to picking it every day, where it could last for months. And people do this with their healing all the time. If we actually give our body sufficient time to heal, it can heal. If we don't, we can see how that slight time there, that deviance in time, that can affect your healing from saying, I've overcome Crohn's, to I'm sitting stagnant in the middle. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a great analogy, man. And that's, stuff that I've gone through, and I think a lot of people go through, where they rush back a little bit too fast, or they try some illegal foods, and or just even, like you said, advanced foods that maybe you should give your body a little bit of a break from.
Exactly.
So yeah, I can definitely resonate with that. Well, cool, man. So now you said, it was like what, like 7 or 8 months before you were feeling like really, really good on SCD. Did you have like one or two foods that kind of held you back, or like, maybe some supplements that you tried that took you forward during those first 7 to 9 months, or?
I think, you know what, for myself, I'm probably, for anybody that's tried SCD, that's on SCD, I'm a perfect example because I have the worst, like I have severe Crohn's colitis. I also, when I started SCD, I couldn't tolerate anything, like literally anything. All I could pretty much tolerate is pretty much chicken and green beans. You know what I mean? So that was the only thing that I could actually tolerate. And I'm like everybody else. I jumped in eating everything I could possibly. So in regards to what I'd recommend for anybody starting, I would say to, ultimately keep it simple. Keep it simple. Start really simple. Slowly add things in. I would definitely suggest anybody to try SCD legal yogurt. That was one thing that I was scared to try, and I wasn't really scared because of I was scared of because of what other people's comments what other people's comments said in regards to adding bacteria and doing stuff like that. But I would tell anybody to do that. I would also advise anybody whether they're taking I think there's an SCD legal probiotic. I would definitely take that as well. And then things like glucosamine or George's aloe vera, if it is legal on according to SCD parameters, then I would go with things like that.
Cool, man. So did you have any problems with like nuts or eggs or anything like that, or are you pretty much good
At this point or previously?
as you were starting the diet?
Yeah, initially I couldn't tolerate anything. Like I said, of course I jumped in like everybody. Like I was eating I was eating lots of peanut butter, lots of almond flour, all that stuff. And that's where I talk about how I said I felt really good in the first 6 or 7 months, but that really good is probably like 75%. What I kept on doing is I couldn't tolerate that stuff, but I thought I could. So a lot of people getting this, they're thinking, oh wow, I'm on SCD, I'm doing great, I'm healing. I only have a small amount of blood in my stool or unformed stool, but they don't actually sit down and say, whoa, maybe I should try. Have I ever tried taking the nut flour out, or have I ever tried taking the cheesecake out, which is one thing I used to have all the time. And when I actually when I played the nitpick game, that's when I played the nitpick game and I changed things, and then I reread the book again and realized how much I missed and what I didn't do. That's when I realized, what I mean, how I got a lot more successful with the diet that way by changing that compared to what I was doing before.
Yeah, I think that's something me and Jordan talk about a lot, where you like kind of go through different levels of health, where you make such dramatic progress that you're just elated and you just love this new diet, and then you kind of stagnate for a while, and then both of us kind of went through phases where we would have a breakthrough where we eliminated a food here or there, like you said, remove a food group, or started like a different supplement regime, and then like you said, we thought we were at 100%, but really
Yeah.
we were maybe only at like 60 or 70%, and it took a couple more tweaks to really push on through and find 100%.
Exactly, and even your bar set at 100%. I'm sure that always changes. Like even myself, am I at 100%? Of course not. And what I mean in regards to Crohn's and colitis, I wouldn't worry about that. But I mean in optimal health. You know what I mean? Optimal health and getting to 100% where you have more energy than you know what to do with, and you know what I mean. I thought, like exactly like you said, I thought I knew what 100% was previously, but the bar is set. So I'm gonna like using critical thought. I think I'm probably at 90%. With Crohn's and colitis, I'm not really worried with that issue, but achieving a lot of other things with health. And anybody with an IBD or almost any degenerative disease, they don't just have what they have. It's not just, you're not, for anybody that has Crohn's or colitis, they don't just have issues with bowel movement. They most likely have issues with back pain and joint pain, and it could be skin rashes and candida issues. There's a lot more. The problem's very complex. The symptoms might be similar, and like just saying, okay, that's where your symptoms are showing, but there's a lot of other symptoms that they don't really group into having Crohn's or colitis that you slowly overcome, whether it be allergies or the joint pain and a whole bunch of things that I'm sure you guys will go through, or you've already gone through your healing protocols or your healing journey, whatever you want to call it.
Hey Jay, this is Jordan. That's a great point, man. I think, one of the things that we always talk about too with people is that the SCG diet we found through the different coaching that we do and emails with people is that it can work for most everybody, and that most everybody seems to be like one or two little tweaks away from personalizing the diet for themselves, and then they'll just take off. And that's what both our experiences were. And I'd just love to hear your thoughts on that and the people that you've talked to and the people that you've helped, and in terms of, creating a custom version of the diet that kind of fits your body, that allows you to get to that, 70, 80%.
Okay, well, first of all, I think that's why what you guys are doing is awesome. Because let's face the facts. People are lazy. And yes, I said it, lazy. Why do you think, and even myself, and I'm sure you guys have fallen into the same boat, we're not very good at following instructions. We tend to do everything like, let's just say, we read something and we only do part of what it says. Like when I read the SED diet, I mean the book Breaking the Vicious Cycle, I read the book, but I never really paid attention to the fine detail. I never grabbed the highlighter and said, okay, this is what I have to do. Instead, I read through things really quickly, and then I did what I thought the diet was, and what I interpreted the diet to be and how it should work. And then I based everything on that. So how many people jump in, and then I wondered why my results weren't perfect. Why saying, oh, why am I still feeling this, or why am I still feeling this? But when I read back, it was like a kick in the face saying, hey, wake up, you were being lazy, you should have paid attention. You know what I mean? And not to be harsh on anybody that is going through a flare-up right now or having a hard time, because especially people with IBDs, we have very high anxiety when we're going through flare-ups and rough times, so our brains aren't always there. So we do have a partial excuse, but in general, people do tend to be lazy. That's why I think the majority of people that do fail on restricted diets, such as SED, is, you know what, it's usually just their own fault. It's usually because they never really dug deep enough to see what exactly do I have to do. And that's what I call health modeling, saying, what is this book talking about? How do they do it? And you got to verify, am I doing it correctly? You know what I mean? Because the majority of people that I speak with that are like, SED didn't work for me. Why? When I'm talking to them on the phone or via Skype or however, I say, did you do this? Did you do the intro diet? What's the intro diet? Wow. I'm guessing you didn't read the book in all of its completeness, that's for sure. You know what I mean? So the majority of people that I do speak with that have tried SED and didn't do well, it was always that they missed things out. And I've done the same thing, and I'm sure you guys would have went back and said, hey, I did this or I didn't do this. But that's why having a resource such as yourself and what you guys do is so beneficial to people, because especially the lives we live, we're always so busy, and now and today, like just in order to live, we're just busy, busy, busy. Both parents working, both people working. We're always driving in traffic, our lives are very hectic. There's not a lot of time. So it's rush, rush, rush all the time. So for somebody to have to sit there and read a book, and for myself, I never read a book till I was 23. You know what I mean? So to read it in its completeness, and now I have a complete library, but that's hard for a lot of people. But to pick up the phone or to send you guys an email and to deal with you guys and say, hey, what can we do? Help us with the plan. And somebody to, almost like the enforcer, to say, you guys are doing this right or you're not doing that right. That's something that you guys have pretty much seen a void that needed to be filled, and that's what you guys have been doing. You know what I mean? I think you guys have been doing an awesome job, and there's nobody out right now that's doing what you guys are doing. And I think your business, your site, your popularity, and everything will grow because of that. You know what I mean? So it's definitely awesome what you guys are doing, and hopefully that answered that question.
Yeah, that's perfect, man. I mean, you summed it right up. It's like, if you have to ask yourself, why isn't the SED diet working, then you're not asking the right questions. The right question is probably more along the lines of, what tweak do I need to make? What little change am I doing wrong? Step back and look at this and see, what am I doing? Am I eating something complete unmoderation? That kind of stuff. So I think just you reiterating that point, from another perspective, and the massive amount of people that you've helped through your website, I think that's just really powerful, man. Thank you.
Oh, exactly. And like when I talk, for anybody listening, I'm not a guy that just, and people have to understand that I'm not a guy that just, like when it comes to SED, I pretty much investigate all these protocols and put them up on my site. But like, I believe SED is definitely one of the core foundations to overcoming IBDs. But I'm not a person that I guess you'd say I'm not dogmatic. I'm a critical thinker. I look at things and I weigh them out. So when I talk about SCD, it's not like I'm saying anything because there's anything it doesn't benefit me by any means. It's just me, through all my research, it's what makes sense. And anybody can throw me any type of protocol and I could look at it usually for the most part. Just give me the basics because the meat and the potatoes of all healing protocols with any IBD there's correlations between them. You know what I mean? And at bottom line, at the end of the day, SCD shows me more med-free people than any protocol out there. And I believe it will continue to do so because it's a lifestyle change. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's something huge that, we run with a lot on our site is that it's not just a diet like the word, diet, that like, fad diets and that kind of crap to lose weight fast or gain sweet muscles or something like that. It's a lifestyle. It's learning about natural foods. It's learning about how to buy, cook, eat unprocessed foods. There's a lot of skills that are involved there. And so, like you were talking about earlier, not only do you have a book and not a lot of people like to read and, there's a lot of nuances to breaking the vicious cycle, like you said, and I think we all do exactly what you talked about. I did it. Jordan does it. We all do it. We just read it and we look at it and we want to make it our own somehow instead of like following everything to the letter. And so you couple that with the fact that you actually have to learn a bunch of new life skills. Like I did. I sucked at cooking, and I couldn't even identify like half the vegetables probably in the store before I started this diet. So, like, it is a huge lifestyle change to really get into it and to get going with it. So that that was a big thing why we actually named our site SCD Lifestyle. So
Exactly.
I'm glad you brought that up. So I mean, you've been, what, talking to people for what, 3 years now? How many
Yeah,
years
I
now?
think it's probably been about 3 years this year. Yeah, 3 years.
Okay, so and we've been talking to people for about a year and a half. So I mean, you're like double our age and helping people with SCD and everything. So like, what's the number one like question people are asking that you help people with, or like, what's the most common thing that if you could give out, a hot tip or a hot piece of advice, what would you tell people?
You mean in regards to SCD?
Yeah, yeah. So say someone's just say someone's not seeing the results that they wanted, and maybe they did exactly like what we did. They read Breaking the Vicious Cycle. Maybe they even have our book, and they're still not seeing like perfect number four poops and not having any gas and cramping and that kind of stuff. Where would you point them first?
Okay, well, I guess you know what I think for a few things, just sort of what I believe in. You know what I'm a guy that did something at the most, like I was a bachelor at the time when I was diagnosed. I wasn't one of the guys. I was very much like yourself. I was a bachelor. Well, at least I'm not saying that you're a bachelor, but I literally had to do everything by myself. I had no support at all by any means. So I was literally the guy that didn't know how to cook, that said, okay, well, if I could make this work, I cooked chicken and vegetables. I made everything quick. I did the quick route. So if I could do the quick route, I'm sure that the majority of people can do the quick route. But for advice to anybody, you know what I'd say? A few things. Number one, I would say keep it simple. And when I say keep it simple, I mean start simple. Like a lot of the protocols that help people with IBDs or a lot of things that just taking things out of the diet, starting from scratch. You know what I mean? Saying, okay, well, I'm going to start off with this and slowly add to it, rather than getting so excited and ahead of yourself. So I definitely keep it simple with the diet and start off with a few things and gauge for a week or two. You know what? I'd be for anybody that's doing that, like in regards to keeping it simple, a food diary is huge. Keep a food diary for anybody, just with everything, symptoms/food diary. Keep track of everything. And definitely patience. I think patience is crucial for anybody, is just to make sure that they remain patient, because healing, you guys got to realize, anybody that's listening to this, you don't get a degenerative disease in a year or 2 years. That's a lifetime of accumulated toxins and lifestyle habits or poor behaviors, or and for myself, I'm the poster boy for bad behaviors. So, and that's both like physically, mentally, everything you can imagine. you know so that's being patient is super important. And I think when people are coming to that roadblock, I think that's when it's time, like when you feel like you're not getting anywhere, you're sort of remaining stagnant. that's when you probably should look for help. You know, and I would urge anybody to start researching, and I would talk to other people that have gone the distance with SCD, or utilize a program such as what you guys are doing, SCD Lifestyle, like people that can actually comment, and a third party comment that's saying, like, a lot of times you'll look at something and you might not see what the problem is, but somebody else that's completely unbiased, they'll just tell you how it is. They have nothing to gain by lying to you, so they say, yeah, this is the way it is, you're doing it wrong. You know what I mean? So that's one thing that I definitely do is, when you get to that point, that's when you should probably seek some help or find somebody else. And I go over that all the time, and that's what my other project that I'm working on, that health modeling site that I'm working on. Health modeling is exactly that. When you run into roadblocks or something, you seek out somebody that has the results that you're looking for. It's not rocket science. And you know what? For somebody, if I was sitting in that position to give you guys a shout and say, "Hey, Jordan, Steve, you know what, I'm having issues. I thought I was getting better, but now there's some complications, and I feel like I'm remaining stagnant. What can I do?" You know what I mean? You might say, "What are you guys eating?" "Oh, I'm eating like four almond muffins a day. I don't know, 4 or 5 eggs a day, and I'm having this." And you could point out the problems right from the beginning, like as soon as you hear that come out of their mouth, but they have no idea. You know what I mean? And that's where the benefit is like seeking help. Is a lot of when you seek help from somebody, they have no benefit of lying to you.
Yeah, man, I can totally jive from that because, it's something that's not really talked about a whole lot, but IBDs and anything digestive related really carries a huge emotional baggage that a lot of people either don't want to talk about or they ignore it. And part of that emotional baggage is if you make the decision to try a natural healing method or you make the decision to go out on a limb and try a diet, and you know, your parents are skeptical, your friends, your doctor, whoever is skeptical of, what you're doing, or maybe even yourself, you're just not completely 100% sold because, I mean, let's face it, who can be? Um, it's tough if you have like, a couple setbacks or you don't see instant relief, and that becomes like another emotional bag that you have to carry with you. So I think you're right on about seeking out help, and I don't know if you have any tips about dealing with the psychology of IBDs and kind of the different trudging through the healing journey. But I'd love to hear them if you do.
Well, I think I definitely probably have some type of outlook on it. I think for anybody that suffers from an IBD, we know that it's definitely a disease that's definitely has a psychosomatic component. Like whenever you get stressed out, you'll notice that it affects your gut. And I'm sure that by coincidence that doesn't happen. That also occurs because like anywhere from like 80 to 90% of your neuroreceptors are in your brain. I mean, are in your gut. So that's a huge issue. So anytime, and for anybody that's like, when we have an IBD and we get stressed out, and a lot of people will go into a flare, that's never really happened to me, at least not in a long time since I've been consistent in doing what I'm doing. But for anybody that does go through that, they'll notice that, yeah, the symptoms, as soon as you're stressed out, you start increasing more bowel movements. You might feel more cramps. But that's just our weakness of having an IBD is in our gut. I'm sure anybody that's listening to this that doesn't have an IBD or remembers when they didn't have an IBD, anybody that gets stressed out has gut problems. How many times has somebody been nervous, an athlete or somebody getting ready to go speak, will they puke or they'll have a bowel movement? It happens to everybody, and that's because of that connection of your neuroreceptors and everything. Like the gut is so huge, and you know what? And just to prove a point, why do you think that SCD diet works with things like autism and behavioral issues, whether it's the GAPS diet or SCD? Your gut affects your behavior. It affects your mood. It affects everything. You know what I mean? So for anybody that's sitting there that's going through issues with whether it's depression or anxiety, I'd say some huge things are definitely you need to realize. It might be hard. You need to realize that you are healing. It is going to get better. And you have to actually picture it when you're not stressed out, you know? And some of the other things that I can definitely think that would help people out a lot is higher doses of vitamin D, especially in North America where we have summers and winters. I definitely think higher doses of vitamin D would definitely help people out. And in regards to stress, I'm a huge advocate that stress is just perception. It's the way you look at something. And just to give a quick analogy how that works, if I'm not a very mechanical person and I'm sitting there trying to fix my engine and to some extent, I'm going to be getting, and I start getting really stressed out. But then I have a pro that comes and tells me, hey, you're just not doing this right. I stressed out about something. He didn't because he knew what he was doing and simply told me how to fix the problem. Stress is ultimately all perception. If you can change your perception to what is stress, that will help you hugely. And another thing that I did that helped me probably the most out of everything was reading that book called The Four Agreements. And it has nothing to do with diet, but it has everything to do with life and whether you're not making assumptions about people or letting people get to you. You know what I mean? And for anybody that's doing SCD, you might try to see how this connects to each other. But, excuse me, but when you remember people saying, why are you doing this diet? And your parents and your friends and everybody thinking it's not going to work because they're totally sold on what the allopathic model says they should do, it's going to start to make you realize that this is your decision, nobody else's decision. And you pretty much have to say, I'm proud of this decision. You know what I mean? I remember you guys probably being out there when you're eating on SCD diet and you get something and you have to say, oh, I'm on a special diet because I have Crohn's. You know what? Who says you have to say that? Who says you can say, you know what? When you're out for dinner, say, this is what I eat. And they say, why? You know what? I'm health conscious. I want to be healthy. There's nothing wrong with that. You just made something that sounds negative sound very, very positive. So those are some of the things that I would definitely do that I think would make a huge improvement to anybody dealing with this.
Awesome, man. Thanks for that. That's great stuff.
Can I put one more comment in there?
No, you can't.
Oh, man. Okay, I'm going. See you guys.
Yeah. Give it to us, man.
I mentioned this on a video before, but just to tell people, the day that I was diagnosed, so when I actually after my colonoscopy and I came home, I was sitting at home, and my father took me home because you needed a signature and you needed somebody to drive you home after the colonoscopy. I was sitting at home and I had an anxiety attack. I've never had an anxiety attack in my entire life. And I literally came to the point when I was thinking about going in the garage, turning my car on, and killing myself. And for anybody that knows me, that is the last thing that will ever come out of my mouth. Being one of the most positive guys out there to now looking at this guy thinking about killing himself. So, you know what? I definitely tell anybody, you know what? Sometimes whether it's chemicals or different changes in your body, it's okay, and I think things are definitely going to get better. So don't let these things distract you. And I remember when that did happen to me, I was alone. So that was probably the worst thing to be alone. It would be better to have somebody, some type of support system where somebody can say it's going to be okay. And that's where things like going to your site and seeing hope and inspiration, like hope can go far away. You know what I mean? For myself at the time, I had a little bit of hope. So pretty much to overcome the issue with my anxiety, I pretty much dropped and did 100 push-ups. I did 4 sets of 25 just to get rid of it. And then a few days later when things sort of balanced out, I was like, I couldn't even believe that I actually thought that. Like there was actually a thought in my brain about killing myself. So if a positive guy like me can go through a period like that, and I'm way more positive and outgoing than the average person, then you know what, I can definitely feel from what anybody's going through that's listening to this. And I'm just telling you guys, hold on, and you know what, there's hope, and do things like reading the 4 Agreements and just try to see past what you're going through at the moment because it's just temporary. Sorry, guys, to take so long.
No, man, that's a heavy subject that I think needs to be talked about more. And, you said, just to kind of sum up kind of what you said and put my spin on it is basically, these thoughts happen. Like you said, the gut-brain connection is ridiculously strong. And it could be, stress and your family's not around. Like you said, you're alone. And at the same time, your gut is just, going nuts with inflammation and bad food in it. And it's not even totally your fault that you have thoughts like these. So, one thing that we try to tell people is don't necessarily judge it. Just, it is what it is. It's a thought. You can't hate yourself for it. None of that stuff is healthy for yourself.
Exactly.
It's going to happen. I would say for the large majority of people, it will happen. And if it doesn't happen to you, then you should feel very grateful. But for those of us who've had thoughts like that, you're not weird, you're not alone, and just don't judge it because tomorrow's a new day and things will get better. So
exactly.
Well, all right, man. Well, just to kind of like bring this up to a high point after talking about something like that. So you created a pretty sweet document that talks about your story with SCD and some other things on because you've done like crazy amounts of research on all different kinds of natural healing. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think what I did, like I said, I believe in something called health modeling, or at least what I've coined health modeling, and I'm working on it right now, which is simply looking at things like Tony Robbins doing modeling behaviors and saying, look at what others do and try to implement the same strategy to overcome a problem. So I looked for the same results and implemented something like that to get the same results. So what I did is when I created my site, I put general information up on it, but I got questions like crazy saying, what did you do? What did you do? Exactly, can you tell us exactly what you did? And it made me think that, okay, maybe I should give a little bit more, like, tell people exactly what I did. And I was pretty organized and documented. Like, I kept track of a lot of things, so I was able to do this pretty efficiently. So so what I did is, since I started a lot of things, like there was a holdup at a point in time when I was completely just, I did everything SED legal. Like I didn't try anything that nobody else didn't try. And I'm not talking about with foods, but I'm talking about things, whether it's like trying the colloidal silver and the George's aloe vera and things like that, questioning the system itself and looking and asking myself questions. But when I finally did, there was a gentleman that was in Hawaii, and he he also overcame his UC, and he started trying these other things, and he was telling me about them. So I said, okay, I started trying this. So he sort of broke me in to sort of try other things. So I started trying some other things, and a few of the other things I started to try just gave me, they took me to that level when I thought I was at 90% or 80% or whatever you want to call it, and they just took me a few leaps forward, and I was saying, wow, like look what people are missing, or whether it being SCD diet and saying, hey, optimizing the diet, changing things, or, like the book itself is awesome, but there's still holes, and just like science is something that's falsifiable. Elaine Gottschall, God bless her soul, she did an awesome job at what she did, creating the book, but there's always ways that we can improve our technology and we can improve our message and things like that. Like I'm sure after me talking with you guys today, there's always going to be more efficient ways that I could go back and change things to make people understand better. And that's what I was trying to do, and that's what you guys are trying to do with the SCD lifestyle, is saying you're trying to communicate things better so that people could understand. So I created the document saying, these are all the things that I've tried that worked for me. I'm not saying it's a cure-all or it's going to work for everybody, but here's what I tried. Here's my approach at my health modeling, saying, try these things that I've done, and maybe you'll get the similar results. When I list detail into trying these various things, I'm also not a guy that ever says anything blindly. I'll never say, hey guys, I might post something on my blog to say, check this out, but in that document, you will never ever have me include something that I've never tried. I'm a cause and effect guy. I might study a lot of theory and stuff like that, but I don't care about theory. I care about cause and effect. I care about what works. If the medical institution thought the same way and said, "Hey, let's look at all these people that have overcome this disease," right? Instead of focusing just on what causes it and searching for this so-called X cure or factor X or whatever they're looking for, if they said, let's look at all these 50 people or 100 people that overcame the disease and said, hey, what did they do? List everything that that every person has done to get to a place where they're med-free. It wouldn't take a rocket scientist to see the correlations between the two, that you could conclusively say, hey, we can create some type of strategy to help people with IBDs. And that's exactly what Elaine Gottschall did using Dr. Haas's information. She took his information, she made it a little bit better, easier to understand. And you know what? And that can go from lots of places. Elaine ultimately being a scientist, things are proven falsifiable, yes or no, and you can improve it. Her message can also be improved, just like she improved the message of Dr. Haas, and she took her book farther than anything that Dr. Haas has done. So could anybody add to what Elaine Gottschall said and make things more efficient and communicate it better? Of course they can. And to say that they couldn't would be completely just irrational. You know what I mean? So I think that what she did is great, but I think there's always things that you can do to improve it. And Yeah, what you guys are doing is exactly that. And my document, the same thing. I just shared what I did, and hopefully it helps some other people, and it's had awesome results, so I have no question in regards to that not working.
Yeah, man, we can totally resonate on that. And just to kind of sum up what you're saying in my words is, it, like you said, you got to start from a base somewhere. Start from SCD or some sort of diet modification because we know that that is the largest group of people seeing results. And then once you get the diet down, then you start branching off into extra layers of health. Once you've overcome one thing, then you're looking onto the next thing, and it's kind of builds upon it. And I think that's where your document really comes into handy is when you're getting above into those higher levels and searching for other answers. So I think it's an awesome research, and I think it's definitely a great thing for people to check out. And really, like you said, we talk about the same thing. Theories are theories, which is that's great, but it really comes down to what can you do in the real world and what kind of results can you see.
Exactly.
So the same thing goes with us. We never talk about anything that we haven't tried. So like. Obviously we've read your document. So there's a lot of things in your document that we haven't tried. We don't speak on them just because we've never tried them.
Exactly.
Um, so I think that's awesome, and I love what you're doing, man. I know we can't wait to hear more about the health modeling. I know we're gonna have you back on the show pretty soon because you're a great guy. You got a lot of wisdom to share. But just want to really appreciate you or thank you for being on the show tonight, and it was great talking to you.
Perfect. Thanks a lot. I had a great time. I totally stand behind what you guys do. You guys definitely seem like you're doing something different. I'm I'm sure you guys are going to receive you're receiving or you will receive a lot of criticism from the, I guess you'd say, SCD sort of environment or SCD world. But you know what I can say is sort of just to end this conversation is any visionary, any person that wants to take something to a new level or do something different, they've always been ridiculed. And it doesn't matter if we're talking about Jesus or if we're talking about Einstein. It doesn't matter who we're talking about. Visionaries are always ridiculed until they're proven right. So I think what you guys are doing is awesome, and I wouldn't let anybody's feedback in regards to what you guys are doing affect you guys. And for anybody listening to this, you guys also got to realize when you're doing a protocol or you're doing SCD, stand behind your decision. Be proud about what you're doing. Don't let anybody else tell you what's wrong. You know what I mean? I can tell you guys this. You don't want to be the part. You don't want to be in the I'm getting my colon removed or I'm getting cancer club, because those aren't clubs that you want to be a part of. You want to be part of the club that says I'm med-free and doing awesome, or at least on the path to getting there. You know what I mean? And I think in my heart, honestly, and regardless of what theory says or anybody else says, I think that the majority of people can overcome this disease and get better.
Jay, that is awesome, man. I can't thank you enough. You are so good with your analogies, man. You make rocket science seem like it's Legos or something. It just all makes sense. I love it. And
Plus, dude, because I come from the ghetto, so I have to sort of fuse it all together to make it understandable, right?
and I think everybody's going to get huge value listening to this. You have so much power in your words and the message that you bring, and just your experience and the 3 years of people that you've helped. It shows. And just thank you so much for your time and the massive value you brought tonight, man. Awesome.
Anytime, guys. Like I said, I stand behind you anytime, and I'd be glad to come on the show anytime.
Okay, great. Well, thanks everyone for listening tonight. This has been the SCD Lifestyle Solution Podcast number 23.